Hello everyone, before we get into the video, I want to thank today's sponsor, Privacy. Privacy is a free service that lets you create a virtual card for you to use when you do any online shopping. The perfect service for the holidays. Let's say you want to buy a Criterion copy of Frances Ha for your friend for Christmas. With the Chrome extension, all it takes is one click for you to be on your way. Plus, you can even set spending limits for yourself. With 12 cards a month, you can do all of this on the free plan, but if you want a little something extra, they got two other options. They have the Pro plan for $10 a month, which includes 1% cash back on all purchases, 30 cards a month, more security, and everything from before. Or if you own a small business, they have the Team plan for $25 a month. This plan includes everything from before, dedicated account management, 60 cards a month, and transaction limits tailored to your business needs. But the best part about it all is that if you go to privacy.com/Karsten Runquist, you can get $5 off whatever your first purchase is with the service. Let me repeat that. That's $5 off anything you want online. Why not, right? Guys, it's the holidays. This is the perfect time to get on this service, so go to privacy.com/Karsten Runquist or click on the link in the description to get started today. As an editing major, I feel obligated to say that the post-production process of any film is where the work truly comes alive. As an art form often overlooked, which makes sense, unless you're editing for someone like Edgar Wright, if a cut is noticeable and takes you out of the story, that's not necessarily a good thing. It's why when I see a filmmaker utilize editing in a way that doesn't feel invisible to enhance the storytelling, it grabs my attention. It's for that reason that for the past month or so, I haven't been able to stop thinking about Noah Baumbach's latest film, Marriage Story. When looking back at Baumbach's career, he has a clear admiration for people and realism in film. All his work comes off as autobiographical and raw to a point where you can assume the process was therapeutic for Baumbach. You first notice this style in Squid and the Whale, a film that feels like a perfect prequel to Marriage Story, and by the time you get to the 2017 film The Meyerowitz Stories, it almost feels like he's reached a peak with the way he writes for realism. This isn't a critique of his work, I love most of what he does, but up until now his work has felt like people watching, not as much feeling. With his work I can always say I know someone like that, or I've definitely been in this position, but I couldn't as often say I've felt that. In Marriage Story, I felt for both Charlie and Nicole, more so than I have any other Baumbach character, and I owe most of this to the editing done by Jennifer Lame. Lame has worked on most of Baumbach's previous work, as well as Hereditary and Manchester by the Sea, all films that rely heavily on perspective. She's also editing Christopher Nolan's new film Tenet, if you need more reason to be excited for it. As far as the actual editing goes, I'll start with an example. It's in this first quote-unquote what I love about montage that we see Baumbach put these tools to work, almost like a warm-up. The edit is smooth, it's patient and dreamlike. There's order to it, when out of nowhere, just like that, Baumbach has subtly made you a character in the film. A hit on the head shouldn't feel as painful or as sudden as it does in this scene, but anyone who has accidentally hit their head on anything knows that this is what it's like. It's unusually loud, it's fast, it feels claustrophobic in the moment. Baumbach places this quick cut in the midst of an otherwise smooth edit, adds a specific sound mix, and does so while the camera is tracking Charlie, and when it's all put together, you feel like that character. You can imagine how important and how advanced this technique gets the further into the divorce we go. Now I think there are two routes Baumbach takes with non-traditional editing that works with this story. The first, and I suppose more common, is a lack of editing. Now there's a difference between a shot where there's a lack of editing and a long take. As an example, this is a long take. There aren't a lot of options to cut away to, we're not in the middle of a conversation. If anything, the scene is the shot. In Birdman, that's a long take. In Climax, that's a long take. This is a lack of editing. The way Baumbach chooses to edit this scene specifically fascinates me. It makes the interaction as uncomfortable as it is. Similar to the opening montage, it works only with context. The moments preceding this pivotal moment are quick and anxious. The cuts are quicker, the profile's tighter. The conversations are fast, each line is begging to be answered in the next. But as soon as Charlie enters the house, they're reaching for something to talk about. The shots are wider, there's more empty space, which feels like a release of tension, but also like a lack of anything to grab onto. Most importantly, the edit slows down. The scene established rules in its first half. We're used to having one thing move on to the next and constantly having something to focus on. And that's why when Charlie enters and eventually discovers the divorce papers, we are begging for a release from Nicole's perspective while simultaneously using this time of stillness from Charlie's perspective. This emptiness, this white production design, it all serves a purpose. On the other side of the spectrum, there's noticeable editing. Here is probably the most obvious example. The scene is interesting because those cuts at the end really shouldn't work. If they feel out of place and as though they interrupt the flow of the scene, I'd say Baumbach succeeded. I haven't been through a divorce, but I've experienced breakup. Boiling it down even more, I've said goodbye to people I love. I think this scene captures the brevity and attention to focus in those closing moments. It's panicked, it's unnatural. Had this scene been cut quote-unquote normally, it would feel empty, like the divorce is simpler than it is. That love that lies underneath the surface that Baumbach wants to capture wouldn't exist. This scene was a brief period of release for the film where nobody was attacking anybody. It felt normal. It makes sense for each character to be desperate for more than that by the end, until it fizzles into separation. Of all these edits, I think the most crucial is how they play with perspective. Perspective and understanding is what drives this story, this divorce.
I don't know how to start.
Not only is it a part of the actual story, it's something Baumbach and Lame used throughout filmmaking to enhance these emotions. While this is the story of two people and themes of duality are everywhere to be seen in the work, the film chooses to focus mostly on Charlie. Baumbach by no means thinks choosing sides in this story is the right thing to do, but through the editing he wants us to pick sides, at least in the first half.
We'll figure it out. We want the same thing.
Right.
We hold on Nicole for a noticeably long period of time as she describes the falling out. Of course we should feel some empathy for her, especially with a cherry on top of Charlie cheating.
That fucking asshole.
But this dislike comes from a lack of understanding from Charlie's perspective. Because as we slowly focus on Charlie more and more throughout the film and we lose touch with Nicole's life, we grow empathy for Charlie. This frustration that we feel comes from the assumption that Nicole isn't suffering to the same extent or isn't putting in the same effort. But who are we to know? We've been with Charlie this entire time. It's why when Charlie reads the letter at the end, a personal side of Nicole that feels new to him, her perspective, he realizes the wrong in the relationship. This is new to him, and that's the problem. Those tears come from a place of love that is still there, but also from a place of regret for not understanding that perspective more than he did. Having seen his other work, Marriage Story feels very vulnerable for Baumbach. While it admits a lot of inevitability within marriage and relationships in general, it also touches on the immortality of the love that sparks those connections. A love that we feel, a love that couldn't have gotten across to the viewer without some good-ass editing. Hey everyone, thanks again so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to go to privacy.com/Karsten Runquist to get $5 off whatever your first purchase is with the service. Make sure to check out Marriage Story, and I'll see you guys in the next one.